Hello, and welcome to another episode of Out Outdoors. Before we kick off with today's episode, I wanted to say a quick thank you for all the wonderful feedback, Instagram messages and emails about the last episode with the brilliant Ben Soto. He is incredible. We could have carried on chatting for hours, if not days, so I'm very glad we got the chance to talk and just hear some of his wonderful life story. Today, I present you with another brilliant story. What are the chances? I've been trying to make time for this person for about 2 years, and that is me and my calendar, nothing to do with them at all. So this has been a long time coming and a conversation I have been looking forward to, and just sitting down with them and chatting and hearing more about them and their life. So without further ado, please enjoy this next episode with the remarkable Cat Runner. Hello all, today I'm thrilled to be talking with Cat Runner. Cat is a climber, photographer and community organiser based in Kentucky, who made history as the winner of the first series of The Climb. Beyond his climbing achievements, he is the founder of Queer Climbers Network and the co-founder of Trans Climbers Belong, initiatives aimed at fostering inclusivity and support within the climbing world. Cat's path is a testament to resilience, authenticity and the power of community. Please welcome to Out Outdoors the wonderful Cat Runner. Hi, Cat.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
You are more than welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. Before we get started, please let myself and the audience know your pronouns and how you identify as part of the LGBTQI+ community.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kat. My pronouns are he, him. I am a queer, transmasculine climber. Definitely like fluctuating on that human experience level.
Let's start chronologically, as I tend to have developed that pattern. Can you tell us a bit about where you grew up and what was young Cat like?
I grew up in Kentucky, and I still live here. It's my home base. My family's here, and I enjoy it quite a lot. It's not some place that I'm trying to leave. And I would say that like young Cat is very much similar to where current Cat comes from. Like you can tell that you can tell that they're cut from the same cloth, I believe. I was into playing outside. I was active. I was explorative. Enjoyed art. Many of the same qualities that I still have today. I just do with maybe the maybe with the unfun additives of being a human for a little bit longer. There's a little bit less innocence, a little bit more unfun adult approaches to things, a lot more, what's the word? A lot more self-judgment, but still at the basis, a lot of the same qualities.
Yes, that's a really poetic answer. I think a lot of people tend to say, oh, I've changed so much. But to actually be able to reflect and say, I have so many of the lovely same qualities, that's really nice.
Yeah, I would hope so, for sure. I think there's the growth, everything is just like has differed by growth and maturity, but I don't think it's like day or night, A and B person. I think I would hope that I still have the qualities that my younger self had.
That's really lovely. And we obviously have to talk about climbing side of things. So how did you get into climbing when you were younger? What was that path entry like for you?
Well, what's fun about climbing is that it is like something that we all do. It's kind of like the primary way that as children and as young people, we begin to explore and interact with our world. And then for some people, there comes like a pretty definitive age or time marker where that behavior is discouraged or it's continued to be encouraged. And um, I'm quite a stubborn person and was quite a stubborn child where I did what I wanted and I enjoyed climbing. So I just continued to do that and didn't ever really stop. I think to some degree it also helps that I'm quite short, so the skills needed for climbing were needed a little bit more in my day-to-day everyday life, like getting things from the upper cabinets of the kitchen. Um, but when we think about climbing now from this kind of like commercial uh, sense where we're climbing on walls with ropes or we're climbing on plastic or ascending cliff lines and stuff, that didn't really start to occur until I was um, mid late elementary school. And then there was a very, very long period during middle school and high school that I didn't climb. I was really focused on scholastic sports. And then come my senior year of high school, a lot of things had changed at that point. My accessibility as a whole to the sport changed. I could drive. I had autonomy over my own schedule. We had a bouldering gym that had opened up in those like 7 years that I didn't climb. So in general, just like being able to engage with the sport as a single individual and not rely or not need to rely on another person was pretty impactful in my ability just to like do the movement in a kind of like safe and controlled space that is a climbing gym. And I would like to say like I've been climbing my entire life, but in terms of my approach to climbing and when I became a climber, because I differentiate between those two things, it's like something we do versus something that becomes like a part of us and part of our lifestyle. That I became a climber my senior year of high school and have continued to be on that train and ride that wave.
You've spoken before in previous interviews about stepping away from climbing in your previous years, as you just mentioned. And a part of that you said was down to exploring your gender identity. Could
Yeah.
you tell us a bit more, if you want to, about that period in your life and how those experiences shaped your relationship with yourself and climbing?
Yeah, I stopped climbing going into middle school because I really wanted to focus on scholastic sports. To me, climbing was still, it was this thing that I did for fun, climbing in a gym and climbing rocks and stuff. But it wasn't, I guess, in my head, it was at a time where it wasn't like a legitimate sport
Mm.
or that was kind of like the public perception of it, at least. And it was something that people did, but there wasn't a structure or there wasn't structured necessarily programming to really kind of develop young climbers in the South, especially in comparison to the way that programming had been developed in like out in Colorado or elsewhere. Um, so I really wanted to play basketball. I had wanted to play basketball in elementary school too, and set my sights like when I go to middle school, when it becomes the real deal, I'm gonna play basketball, and I did. And then while I was also in middle school, I picked up and started playing field hockey, which was fun. And like through a culmination of different things, going into high school, I decided to stop playing sports altogether. Um, I'm still like a very short person, but I did go through a growth spurt enough to like get Osgood-Schlatter disease, which is a growth related impingement's not exactly the right word, but it's a really common just like kind of growth growth thing, but it really affected my ability to run, especially as I was doing like cardio heavy and enduro sports. And then it was going into high school. It's like if middle school was the real deal, high school was the real deal. And it was kind of this thing. It's like I'm not good enough to play in high school. I can't keep up. I can't do the running. I definitely can't do it. with kind of this thing that impacts um, my pain tolerance and my ability to do it. So I stopped sports altogether. And um, during my first 2 years of high school just like in general, like wasn't great for a number of reasons, but through a lot of it also started exploring my gender identity. Like YouTube had become a lot larger of a thing. It was kind of also the beginning of social media as we know it, and I at some point stumbled into kind of like a rabbit hole on YouTube and found some people who were documenting their gender transition, and it really like resonated with me. It's like wow, this is like a thing, this is a community, these are feelings that other people share, and um, I really identified with that. And um, also, it was like, these are, it's like maybe this is why I feel the way that I do, or why things feel off. And um, as I was doing more and more research, it was like, there's also like, for me, solutions to maybe like help with this. Um, so went through this whole like gender exploration thing, which um, makes it sound like it took a really, really like long time, but it was like found those videos and like 2 weeks later was like coming out to my mom and stuff because I'm like, I think this is it.
Oh,
And then continuing to like explore and educate and go down kind of some more of that with her from um, after coming out. Eventually transferred high schools and then went into this new high school um, as a boy, and that was kind of like this cementing thing of my like social transition. And by then, like a lot of things were feeling a little bit more grounding, a lot better. I had more free time. And it was kind of this thing where it's like I didn't quit sports because I didn't enjoy them. There was like a number of outside factors that impacted that. And now feeling better in my body and in who I was like, I would like to like do sports again, I think. Um, and so I settled on bowling because it felt like something I could do. It felt like something the seasons lined up as well with my upcoming top surgery and things like that. Um, so went out for the bowling team. I went to a school where if you wanted to play, you made it because we were a small school. So there wasn't really much to try out for. And pretty soon after that first practice was told that I couldn't play because of Kentucky high school athletic policies. So then um, I was at a point, I think, in my transition that I was still um, certainly a little bit more fragile about my identity and a little bit more stubborn about how I wanted to go about things um, because the options that were presented to me where you can practice with the boys team, but you can't compete on the boys team. Um, Instead, you could like practice with the boys team and compete on the girls team, or you can practice and compete on the girls team, or you can just like you just. I chose to like not do it at all, and then set my sights for is like, all right, I want to play basketball again. I'm going to do it my senior year. Based on this policy, like I meet the requirements that they're asking for me. So can I get special permission to play? And I eventually did, but it took so long for it to happen that by the time I got permission for the basketball season, I had too many commitments my senior year, so I didn't play as well. And then that's when climbing found its way to me um, in my senior year. That's like a long-winded answer about sports, but in general, like I've always been athletic, enjoyed playing scholastic sports, enjoyed the team atmosphere. Like that was like really big for me in middle school, being a part of a team and having that. And then not just like my gender transition, but a number of things impacted my ability to engage with that community. And then when I tried to get back into it, legislation prevented me from doing so. So,
I think that might, well, firstly, thank you for sharing all of that. And if there's anything I love, it's a long winded answer. So please keep going with those. I think that may, I don't want to say shock, but certainly surprise people. I think a lot of general people assume that air quotes trans sports bans have only appeared in the last 4 to 5 years, but actually globally, it's been going on for so long.
mm-hmm.
And I think, especially, I don't know if you've kept up with what's happening in the UK. There's quite a few things happening
Yes.
in different.
Oh, yes.
Yes, there's quite a few things happening governmentally in the past month, but also there's been fragments happening over the past, I say, 3 years in sports, impacting trans people being able to, like you say, even recreationally participate, let alone at higher levels.
Yeah, I think it's like, especially in the last like few years, we've seen bands that are a lot more explicit about who they are targeting and who they are affecting, or even the motives of who they're affecting. Because like it was called like it was just like it was just a thing about like your gender designation originally, for the Kentucky High School Athletic Association. But it involved eligibility requirements that certainly affect trans people. And honestly, were like came written from an extreme point of ignorance, really kind of actually hypocritical and um, impossible for a high school student, or any youth to kind of like achieve in the first place. Also completely unnecessary and involving like medical interventions with bodies and stuff, and we're intervention, serious medical intervention on minors' bodies. So it's kind of like these policies. It's like they've they've always existed, and they've always like affected certain demographics of people, and it's in now with the last like 5 years, it's becoming explicit about who specifically they're targeting, or who um what's what the motivation behind it is. Because in general, like, trans athletes have been able to compete in the Olympics since like 2006. I would have to look at those specific dates, but it's it's not like any policy changes are like new. They've had stuff in place, or things have been targeted like in 20, it's like or maybe it was 2002 is when it was kind of like put in that trans athletes can like participate if they follow by XXX standards. And then in 2015, it was when they removed the surgery requirement. And then everything kind of went to shit in 2021, with kind of the IOC policy kind of like changes and stuff.
I think you worded it, you picked up on something from what I said, and you said it's people's motivations. I think people are a lot more explicit from along the political divide.
There's a lot more targeted fear,
Yeah.
and targeted fear mongering, because it's a lot of all of this, like all these policies are proactive policies, to prevent a this like fictional kind of like oncoming issue that is statistically like there's no statistics to support that that's happening. So it's all of these preventative measures for a problem that doesn't really even exist. But it's also like I kind of can understand why it's like, let's target this like thing that to us has this like very kind of like clear cut, easy solution rather than actually like diving in and like talking about like the true kind of like barriers to access to sport or access to play and like the real threats to like specifically women's sports. It's like, well, let's go attack this let's go find a solution for this very small problem that's not really that's not a problem kind of like at all.
Mm.
um,
One thing I've noticed that people focus on a lot when talking about transition, and I've spoken to a few people about, is so not only the physical, but it is very deeply emotional and personal. Would you be willing to share any aspects of your emotional transition that happened alongside your physical one?
yeah, I mean, I think for me, like even like almost immediately, even before a lot of the physical changes happened, like I felt really grounded and really secure in like knowing that something was coming and that changes were coming. And like, um, I think in a lot of ways, the world felt a little bit quieter and a little bit more at ease. Um, it reduced a lot of anxiety that I had. I think everything just felt really grounding and a lot more relaxed. Even if the changes hadn't happened yet, a lot of my dysphoria kind of stemmed from um, a lot of physical dysphoria, with how I was perceived and how people interacted with me, and then the spaces that I could just like navigate and the ease of navigating those spaces. And a lot of those anxieties changed when kind of access to those spaces changed. I can say that so much more eloquently. Um,
I mean, everything you say is pretty much eloquent, so I wouldn't worry about that.
it doesn't feel eloquent. Um, um, yeah, I had a lot of anxiety stemming from physical transition, and a lot of it had to do with kind of like social anxiety and stuff. And I think that anxiety certainly impacted my mental health and my emotional health. And then when I started experiencing the physical changes and my ability to navigate and engage with those physical spaces changed, that reduced a lot of the like unease I felt. And so it just made everything felt a lot more grounding.
That's really beautiful to hear. I think a lot of people who I've spoken to and I know that have transitioned, the way in which you know yourself and you understand yourself is so much more than I think anyone cisgender could ever wish to know themselves. I think it's really beautiful that you know yourself that well.
I think it sometimes like can force you to pay closer attention to certain details of how you feel in spaces or how you feel in certain circumstances. And it can just heighten your awareness there, which can be both a good and a bad thing. Because then you become like really tunnel visioned on stuff, and you're like, oh my God, and that can increase your anxiety. But I think I think it can encourage you to just like think maybe a little bit deeper about some of those things, and then you can translate that to other parts of your life.
Mm. No, it's a really good point. Thank you. How has your I don't want to say but understanding and slash or your expression of masculinity evolved? Because you didn't say an age, and that's fine, but you transitioned, as a teen
Oh,
to now. Yeah,
yeah,
not that you have
yeah,
to say an age, but I'm just saying
yeah.
it's been a few years. So how
I
has
just
your
forget.
expression of masculinity evolved through that time?
I'm like, how old am I? Yeah, I transitioned as a minor. I transitioned when I was at the end of like 16 going on 17. And I think what a lot, uh, both with my trans identity and then both my expression, and I can track it through even before I started transitioning, but like kind of starting when I figured out what being trans meant and what it can entail and what it meant for me. Um, I was like super originally like really reactive, really protective over um, my identity, like really kind of like emotional in some ways about it. Like would go into the YouTube comment section to just like argue with people because I felt like I was having to justify something all the time, I think. Um, and then I originally like I identify on the masculine spectrum. I don't mind if people use like traditionally masculine terms or identities for me. So like transitioned through the binary. I never really like I think internally or like personally like identified or felt like a girl or with womanhood. It was more of something that I was like associating with because that is what had been like projected onto me, and it I didn't know there was like necessarily another option. And in some of those ways I was not kind of this like storybook expectation of femininity or womanhood or girlhood. So like sometimes I really embraced being a girl, but it was being like an unstereotypical girl. Um, and I felt like power in that and kind of like pride in that because that's just like the relationship I had with that identity. But when I transitioned between the binary. I transitioned to male and socially, and stuck with that for like a really, really long time. And it's not that I'm not there anymore, but there came a point where it was like when people were using like kind of like hard masculine terms like male, manhood, um, it did not feel there was something in it that did not feel like totally at home for me. And certainly, but also like non-binary doesn't necessarily feel at home to me either. Um, I think I personally resonate a little bit more with just kind of like androgynous terms in alignment with just like the human experience. Um, and there, and that's how like personally I think about myself, and like when I think of like childhood or human experience, or sometimes like within that it's like manhood, but less so. So it's kind of like devolved into this like I got personally just like tired of feeling like for myself I have to justify like how I present in one identity over the other, and then what feels at home, and then um, like masculine feels good to me, trans masculine feels good to me. Sometimes like trans man, trans guy feels good to me too. It kind of like varies and stuff. I certainly know I'm not a woman. I'm not a trans woman. I'm not. Don't identify with femininity. And I think it's a little bit been about like listening and like understanding what communities, terms, identities make me feel settled and grounded, and what make me question or pause. And it's like being open to that changing, and then also just feeling kind of like finally getting to the point where it's just like I don't care and I don't have time for it anymore. And it's like a really privileged place to be. But I've gotten to the point where like I feel so settled with myself at the end of the day that it doesn't really matter what other people think. Because it's like some people like, well, on my Instagram will be like, will come in and be like, you're a woman. I'm like, okay, then this is my experience of womanhood. And that's like totally valid and fine. And it's like, and they'll be like, "You're not a woman," but it's like, this is a womanhood. It's like, maybe it's like, then what do you want? Because it's like, I literally don't care. It's like, this is my experience as a human. You can put whatever fucking adjectives and stuff that you want on it. Um, and I'm sorry for cursing.
Oh, absolutely fine with me.
Yeah, and it's kind of this. I'm gonna have a problem with it when we talk about policy and legislation and like how I'm affected from like a legal standpoint, um, and things like that. Um, but in general, it's just like, I know at this point who I am. I'm grounded in who I am. At least I think, or I feel grounded at least now. Um, and like, I really, really don't care what other people think. I don't have time for it.
I think that's one of the best places to be, especially now I'm a few years into my 30s, and just the levels of fucks are so low,
Oh,
so
yes.
low. I was like, I just don't. You
We're
think
out
what
of
you want.
spoons.
Yeah, just do what you want.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do me over here, and I'm really, really content with that. And it's such a nice, peaceful place to be. So I don't think I can talk to you and not mention the climb.
It's okay. I don't mind talking about it.
When and how did you decide to apply?
I kind of knew it was happening. I had some friends who also applied, and it was this thing where I was like, well, I'm not sure if I want to do this. If the instructions for how to apply like show up and stuff like that. It was something where I was like, I'm not gonna go like searching for it. I'm not gonna put a lot of um, effort into like trying to find this thing. But if it makes its way to me, and then I'll do it. And I think for me, what was really important was like when buzz was going around that like this was happening and stuff, it was a lot of like unknowns about like what kind of program is it going to be, what's the goal here. The climbing community is small, but it's also big. It's also pretty homogenous with its communities and identities, or at least the identities of people that are represented in climbing media. So it was also very much this thing where I felt like um, the stakes were really low for me in terms of like if I did or didn't get it. And if I had the chance, I was gonna, yeah, like I'm gonna put effort into this. It'd be cool to do. Like I'm totally in on it. But if it doesn't happen, I'm still gonna have a climbing season in the red. I'm still my life's. I'll just go back to where my life is and stuff. And I think what was really, really important to me was like understanding kind of like who historically has been represented and seen in climbing media is like, I don't know who's doing the casting for this. I don't know what the vision is, but I want to, and I'm sure um, other people are applying for this. But in the instance that they aren't, I want to be able to say at least I tried to be I wanted to give the casting people a chance to cast diversity.
Mm.
Um, I wanted because I check a lot of boxes. I just do, and it's kind of this. It was this thing where it's like, um, if it's limited on who they can pick, yeah, I check a lot of boxes. Maybe we can get a little bit more color, a little bit more queerness, possibly some transness in this like major kind of like mainstream climbing competition thing. And it'd be and it's like that's something that like needs to happen.
Oh, definitely. one thing that is very obvious to a lot of people is that media portrayals of queer stories from the queer community, trans stories from the trans community, often become, they're at a risk of being reductive and tokenistic, or tokenistic, pick your one. It seems like your experience was different though, from what I've read, and you've mentioned in previous interviews you had significant input into your narrative. Correct me if I'm wrong. Could you share how that unfolded, and what it meant to you to be given genuine agency working with producers and by producers into how you were presented?
I think, well, it's like in some ways, like, I didn't get to like, I wasn't in the editing room. There was a lot of stuff that was left on the cutting room floor, that I know of. But I came into it, being out, like, this is for me, like, my queer and trans identity isn't something that I want to leave at the door. When I come into the climbing space, it comes with me. It always comes with me. It's important to me. And I was like upfront about that. It's like, I'm coming in as this. Some people really like it. If it's not your thing, then that's kind of sad to hear, but okay. And I think pretty much like I was really upfront, how I was coming into that space, and a lot of like my answers and interviews and my motives behind why I was there was impacted by that. Um, and so like, yeah, at the end of the day, we didn't know what the final cut was going to be. Um, but in general, like just through my answers and how we discussed things and stuff like that, and how I presented myself in the like casting interviews and stuff, it was, um, I tried to make it pretty clear. It's like, I'm coming in as this, and I'm bringing this part of, um, myself with me.
Reflecting on that, like what it is, it's a professional partnership you had with them, with that team. What do you, with the producing team for the climb, what do you think other TV shows, media projects could learn from that to create a more authentic, respectful portrayal of people from our community?
I think it had been, I think it had certainly been like conversations that they were having, like in the creative room, about like their overall goals of what they wanted to create, and kind of like their ability to create that environment to like tell the story. Like mine came from those original like motivations and goals for sure, and conversations that they had early on. I think, um personally, like I've told my trans story so much that, I am like really open with it, and there's a lot of things that I'll just like openly talk about and stuff. And so I think that can definitely like impact things, just because of like my openness to disclose kind of like whatever. I think it's kind of, there were members on the crew who were like sweet and understanding, and like were respectful, but like they knew, they at least it, like for me, it felt like they knew who we were and knew kind of like our stories and stuff like that, and were respectful about it. And then if there were concerns, we could bring them up, and they would, um, work to find like a compromise or a solution, or, I think it just kind of like, I felt like if I needed anything, I had like, it felt okay to have a like communication with them, and there was like an open chain of communication to express those things. So
That's really nice that they had those in place. proactively, and not if something had happened, then they put these people in place. Like they're like that welfare was there from the beginning, and that just feels like a really nice, really welcome bit of allyship in media when you're taking people into these like weird unknowns, not even including climbing. Like if you're on a set and there's loads of
Yeah.
cameras around.
Yeah. It was a season one show, so they were still figuring out things as they go, as you do on season one shows. But I think they were trying to do what they could and be mindful and ready for those. And they were learning as they went to. Is like it was hard for us because it's, I mean, like you're thrown to a completely like different environment, and just having to like kind of figure out and adapt to that environment, new people, a completely like new routine, and it was, yeah, it was a different experience for sure. I'm pretty easygoing with a lot of that stuff, so it personally like wasn't super kind of like disruptive to me. But I know that's not the same for like everybody.
And on top of that, you've got to climb at your best in front of people you're competing with, in front of Chris and Jason and a camera crew. I'm like, I was watching some of the clips when it came out, when it was on air, and I was like, I can't even climb at my best on a good day.
It was hard. It was like you were in a competition setting, and it's just like a competition setting with like higher stakes and stuff. I think what really helped was we were climbing in front of other people, but like at the core of like the competitors and us, we bonded really well, and we had a good group. I think it would have felt very, very different if I did not feel as connected or as centered as I did with that group of people. So it felt like for me, like, yeah, we were out doing this thing. I was out doing this thing that like is hard and it's kind of like strange, and I don't get to do like my full warm up routine, and like there are certain elements that are just like could be off putting and stuff. But I was doing it with a group of people that I love very much, and it felt like the stakes were high, but I was with like good company and good friends. So
Nice. It's also a nice metaphor for climbing in general, isn't it? As long as you've got good people who are going to give you a good belay, then you're going to be okay, I think, in stressful situations.
you want a safe belay, but you also just like it's all the time spent on the ground too, just like shooting the shit and hanging out and stuff. It's like that, because that's something that I'm really mindful about, like, and what I need for my own personal climbing. It's like, and I think kind of a a way that climbers shrug off uncomfortable conversations in a way that's not productive or healthy. It's kind of this like very dismissive behavior of just like, it doesn't matter who you are, what you do, just like give a safe belay, and we're all climbers, just come in and be a climber and stuff. And it's like not everyone can do that.
Definitely.
So it like really matters, kind of like outside of just climbing, like climbing is more than just, there's so much time spent on the ground than just like climbing on the wall. And when you're doing work in outdoor spaces and accessibility and things like that, it's like, that's what you're working to to make more inclusive and stuff, is like all the in-between time, and all the time spent that you're not on the wall climbing, is because like that is equally just as important and just as impactful to someone's ability to do this thing, as them actually doing the thing.
Yeah, it's like I think it's like you were referencing earlier about the climbing festivals you're inputting. It's like the people you bring with you when you're into these projects. So the guides you bring in, the people you bring in to help set it up, what's their intention? Is it inclusive? Is it intersectional? Are we all going to be accepting here? Are we all going to get along during this thing? I think it's really good thing to be mindful of, especially I'm very much used to just climb with anyone, meet them at a lay-by, let's go climbing. Whereas now I definitely I'm more mindful about who I spend that time with.
Yeah, I want to be able to have conversations outside of just like talking beta. I want to be able to talk about like real shit too.
I think some of the best put in the world rights conversations have been just lying on a boulder mat, just like
Hmm.
covered in down jackets.
Oh, I mean, 90% of climbing is laying down and yapping. 10% is climbing.
Oh, I'm glad that's the same for you as well. It's the exact same for me. And bringing good crag snacks
Oh
and
yeah.
cups of tea.
Again, it's the in between time.
It sounds like your experience, like you said, it was their first season of the show, but they tried to develop an allyship, if you will, with like genuine intent. For you, and you said you organise a lot of things in your day to day life. What does allyship actively look like? You know, when how can organisations create
Mhm.
and then foster relationships that ensure
Yeah,
safety as well?
I think at the core of allyship is you're gonna make decisions and do things that you would do for your best friend, or um, in terms of how you treat people and policies that you put in place and stuff like that. I think in general, like activism and allyship is like everyone, we're not all the same person. There are certain things that some of us are really good at and certain things that some of us aren't, and certain needs that some people can provide that others can't. And I think um, allyship, it's important to remember that it's a verb, it's a continued action, it's a continued thing of showing up in the way that works for you, whether that be doing the organizing or giving your time and doing the volunteering, or if you don't have those things, you're not able to contribute those things, it's funding it and paying the people who do have the time to do the other. It's a group effort. There's a lot of needs to do it. I think it's about um, showing up and being able to do that without being asked, or without necessarily like having or needing your hand to be held the whole time, because that just creates additional labor on some of the people who are already doing very laborious things. um, I think allyship involves having agency, and autonomy, and taking those things for yourself, and understanding that you're probably going to mess up, and it's when that happens to learn from it, apologize if you need to apologize, and try and do better the next time, and try and have a little bit of self-confidence in what you're doing, and but certainly just taking uh, initiative yourself, because it's with the hand holding and waiting, we're gonna wait forever if nothing's gonna happen if we have to wait forever for someone to tell us what to do. It's in a lot of ways there's a whole bunch of resources out here, and I understand kind of the hesitancy of wanting to wait for a credible source, or put that on your friend who is a credible source, but um at the same time, you can also do your own research and figure it out, or find organizations who you trust in their opinion, and then there's a lot of ways to go about it, but I think it's continuing to show up and do the work and move with your best intention. And again, if someone explains or someone communicates that maybe there's a better way to do it, or the way that you've done it is harmful, it's okay, how can we do better next time, and not take it as doing something wrong, necessarily, um, but it's there's always going to be a better way to do it, and kind of this understanding that harm is an inevitable thing, and with all of our actions, it's like, okay, like let's maybe try and make a decision that where we can mitigate as much harm as possible, but understand that it's so, we're not perfect for everyone. Not everyone can be, we can't create this like perfect thing that takes care of everybody's needs. It's like really, really hard because everyone's needs are different. So it's like, all right, what decisions can we make that mitigate the most harm, but understand that, all right, when someone comes to us and tells us that what we're doing may not can be done better, or let's sit down and like learn from that and have a discussion with them and see if there's something that we can do to like do better.
Thank you for sharing that. I hope if there's anyone outside the community listening to that, they have made notes. Because it's, like you say, I know we're having a conversation, we're both from the queer community, but it's exhausting saying that to well-meaning people over and over again.
Yeah, and it's a reminder for like yourself as well to like show up for other communities and things. It's like I'm not
Mm-hmm.
looking for you to be like top 5 gold star ally, or not every, like hopefully like you are that, but it's like I'm also not expecting that from everybody to be a top 5 gold star ally to the queer community, because at the same time it's like you may be a top 5 gold star ally to um, like the Black community or the Indigenous community or another community that equally and needs that support too. So it's like, how can it's like, and that's where it's like I can show up for you in this way if you can show up for me in this way, and we can hopefully like divide, or not necessarily divide, but find a compromise and then take care of everybody's needs.
Two initiatives that you're very closely involved with, the Queer Climbers Network and
Mm-hmm.
Trans Climbers Belong.
Mm-hmm.
Please tell me absolutely everything and what inspired these initiatives.
Queer Climbers Network has unfortunately taken the back burner with a bunch of other things that I've been doing right now. But it was a personal project that I started. I really just wanted like a database of like all things queer climbing. I wanted It started out with this like calendar project idea where as climbers, climbing is a part of like our lifestyle. It's a lot of people use it to regulate emotion and stress. A lot of people have it manufactured into their routines. And when you travel, like that usually means that you're going to go find somewhere to climb. I think for me particularly, it can be a lot more fun and frankly better for my climbing if I do that around other people or with community rather than going in on my own and being like angry and trying too hard and then being upset. Being with being in community or with other people can definitely reduce or ease some of those expectations, and I can enjoy the sport a little bit more. Um, and so, like this calendar project, it starts like I want a place where someone or I can go and I can see like, oh, if I'm traveling here, this is where a queer climbing group is gonna be, and when they're gonna be there. Um, and so it was like a massive calendar project, and then it evolved into just like as I was figuring out when all these meetups and things are happening. It kind of like just grew, and it's like, all right, I know where all these groups exist in the US and then some internationally, and then kind of like continuing to build on that about like climbing festivals and expanding to like, all right, what climbing competitions have a third gender category or are specifically or genderless or specifically for certain community groups and that kind of thing. So it like right now it's kind of taken a little bit of a back seat. I'm trying to figure out a more sustainable way to like present that information. and I just haven't had time to like sit down and really really dive back into it. It was also something where like as a component, I really wanted like a database of just like all the guides in the world who, um, if they're partnering with anybody who's looking for like maybe someone from a specific affinity group, it's like let's get these people work and stuff. So that's kind of like where Queer Climbers Network came from, is just like wanting this database of all this information so that people can connect a little bit more and we can be stronger together. And then Trans Climbers Belong. I'm one of the co-founders and still on the leadership team. We're a grassroots organization that formed in response to when USA Climbing quietly introduced um, a trans athlete participation policy that would have like pretty much effectively kind of prevented 90% of trans climbers from being able to compete in USA Climbing sanctioned comps. So we challenged it, got the community on board, kind of grew support and presented USA Climbing with like this is kind of this policy has a lot of red flags. It was done in a really kind of like honestly, it was announced in like a pretty unethical way. We believe in this sport. We believe in we want to help you if you'll take it. Because based on like your core values and stuff, it's like this isn't your intention to restrict a bunch of people from competing. So it's like, what can we do to help you work through this? And we got the policy indefinitely suspended and paused. It's being rewritten. There are with more than just one trans people on that riders team. And this policy like affects not just trans people, but non-binary and intersex people as well. And so we're trying to, we've been available to assist them where they have questions and stuff. But since all of that's occurred and they've moved into the rewrite stage, we've been a little bit separated, just kind of also on the same stage as the general public of just like asking for updates every now and then and doing what we can as an organization to at least like um, um, encourage like transparency and accountability and to keep them on track for a better policy.
That is amazing. I think in a world of so many policies coming out, but quietly done and loudly done, and actually being able to approach the body that's done it. So in this example, USA Climbing, and just that phrase of calling them in and saying, hey, this isn't great. This is how you can improve. I think that's just textbook, top shelf level example of how you guys have done that absolutely beautifully.
Yeah, I think it was a lot of like, again, gaining support from like the wider climbing community and the wider USA Climbing communities. Like, there's actually a lot of people who don't agree with what's being done here, and then it's also just like not this policy and kind of the things that are associated with it aren't won't just impact trans climbers, but impact actually a lot of USA Climbing's competitive climbers, and it's like and kind of bringing up kind of our concerns from like a security and privacy standpoint for everybody, not just trans climbers. And it just happened to be that like it was a group of trans climbers who whose attention was turned because of this policy, but it's like this actually affects a lot of other people, and it's like let's work to like create something better for everybody and safer for everybody, and like I think also encourage them to like have conversations or just like think a little bit deeper about the implications of some of these things, like the grievance policy and the judicial committee and like how they operate. And it's like, if we're submitting certain documents, like what happens to those, who has access to those, like kind of just these questions of like, there's a lot of like open-ended things here. And it's one of those things. It's like, um, if we're going to ask for things like that, let's maybe put it in writing of and create boundaries over what we can and can't ask for, and then be explicit or transparent about how these things are going to be kept, how they're going to be secured, because USA Climbing's competitive. It's not just adults who participate in USA Climbing competitions. It's actually more so youth, and so we're talking about sensitive data for minors.
Definitely. I think what you and your other co-founders are doing is phenomenal, and alongside working and just being an actual human, activism is emotionally, mentally, as well as physically tiring and draining. How do you balance all of that whilst protecting your own peace and well-being with this advocacy work?
Sometimes I'm really good at it. Sometimes I'm not.
You look so proud of yourself. You're like, sometimes? Great.
Right now I'm not. I'm doing too many things right now. I think working with Trans Climbers Belong is something that we're all aware of on our leadership team. Is that it's honestly been one of the most like effective groups we've ever been a part of. We just like work really well together, and I think we have a lot of us come from this work and have understanding and respect, and worked really hard to put structures in place that support like maintaining the work even as people step away, to care for themselves and to take time and things like that. I think for me, it's like understanding where my productivity lies and what and how I operate as a person too. And like, I think it's hopefully like not doing it alone, and then being able to communicate with other people about what my capacity is or is not, has been like pretty impactful, of just being like, this is how my brain operates. I'm happy to do these things, but I need you to do this so I can do these things. Or it's just like I'm communicating that like I'm currently like really occupied doing this one thing right now. Like I'm available this way, but I don't have time to like sit down and take care of tasks all at once. It's like it's going to be like super sporadic throughout the day. Like I'm available and that kind of thing. So it's like just understanding like where my capacity lies, being able to ask for help. I think it's being kind of like protective and setting boundaries of like what I need to help regulate, and like doing that with people who recognize, or I can be open with and be like, I can be stressed or I can be tired. And it's like, but being able to share space with them that feels a little bit less burdened. And then, so yeah, it's like maintaining certain routines that help ground yourself. And then I think for me, I understand like I'm going to finish a task like by a deadline. If I have a deadline, it will get done. But then being flexible about like, I literally am like, will be less productive right now if I try and do it. I will literally not be productive at all if I try and force it and do it right now. So I'm going to go lay on the couch, and then I'll get up in like 30 minutes and then be able to do the thing, and then letting yourself do that.
There's something quite empowering in realizing how your own brain works for yourself, but then how you fit into advocacy work, your work, being a family, and all this. It's slowly learning how you fit in it's pretty life-changing, actually.
Yeah.
Sadly, I'm going to ask you my penultimate question because I think we could be here for hours, Kat, which would be fine with me, but we should probably. Looking forward to the future, what are you most excited about? That could be personally, professionally, within your own community.
Oh, right now, I say it to manifest it, and then usually things change. I'm excited to be home this year and not travel as much. I love traveling, but it's it is hard for someone like me who um, one of the things that I need to feel settled and to like refresh myself is to be home in like a pretty like sturdy environment. I think it's like I'm still passionate and excited about the work that I'm doing and what I'm creating, and it's always for me just hope that I can do it at a high quality that I personally want to see, and like a lot of my anxiety doesn't rest on my ability to do the thing, but the quality of the thing. Um, I think I think I'm just very much like I like to go with the flow and I make things work, and I've been grateful that the pieces have managed to fall in place, and I've found supportive people who help create whatever this life that whatever I'm doing, whatever this life is. And overall, like, I'm proud of what I do and I'm happy with what I do and I'm happy with what I've accomplished. And I think that's, what I want to continue to strive for. Um, and just following along on that path, whatever it may be or wherever it may take me.
Sounds like a really just lovely way to live. If listeners want to find you online, support you, engage with your initiatives, how can they get involved or find you?
My Instagram is at cat like a cat. All of that, not just CAT. And from there, you can find all of my other bajillion Instagram accounts. If you want to follow the Queer Climbers Network, again, it's a little bit less than what it used to be. I just haven't had a lot of time to put into it. But we have a website, queerclimbersnetwork.com, or at Queer Climbers Network on Instagram. Trans Climbers Belong is at Trans Climbers Belong. Yeah, I'm around. I share things sometimes. It's been a lot more sporadic than in past years, but I'm still around.
I enjoy following you on Instagram.
Thank you.
Kat, thank you so much for your time and openness, eloquence, thoughtfulness. It's been an absolute joy speaking with you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.